The paper on most of the seats. If you take a look at it, and we put this together because a lot of people really don't understand what this club is all about. And the CDC was established to give Valencia Lakes residents the opportunity to learn about American conservative principles and how these fundamental ideas apply to important issues that are impacting the country. The club is not political and does not support any political party. We'll now review the format of tonight's meeting. After the speaker is finished with his presentation, there will be a question and answer period, and time permitting, there will be an open discussion. And now I'd like to give you some information on tonight's speaker. And even though he had a badge, they wouldn't let him in, he said. He showed his badge, but it doesn't mean anything to our security team here. Okay, Mr. Emery currently serves as resident agent in charge for the Homeland Security Investigations Sarasota, Florida field office. Mr. Emery began his career in federal law enforcement in January 2002. Prior to becoming the RAC for HSI Sarasota, he was a resident agent in charge for Columbus, Ohio from October 2013 to August 2018. Additionally, from 2010 until 2013, Mr. Emery held various positions at HSI headquarters in Washington, D.C., including Program Manager of the Trade Transparency Unit and the Border Enforcement Security Task Force, as well as a liaison to the Defense Intelligence Agency. Further, Mr. Emery is a U.S. Army officer assigned to the Florida Army National Guard, where he serves as a fire support officer. He holds a BA in sociology from North Central College and a master's in strategic security studies from the National Defense University, and he was awarded a War College diploma from the National Defense University. So let's give a warm welcome to Mr. David Emery.
All right, good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me all right? So I hope all right here. So yeah, Neil was right. You have really good security here. So thumbs up there from DHS. They held me up and I said, I got a badge. I got a government vehicle. They said, I don't care. No solicitors. So after that, I got through and happy to say I'm here. Neil, thank you very much for the introduction. So I am the resident agent in charge for Homeland Security Investigations, our Sarasota field office. And probably for about 90 to 100% of you, I'm going to go towards the 100%. Probably not everybody knows exactly what that means. So I'm going to start off really big and raise the hands. Who knows what the Department of Homeland Security is and what we do? Oh, come on, I think more people watching these know what main DHS is and protecting the borders and the United States from threats abroad. I think probably most of you have gone through the airports, you've gone through the Customs Service and declared items, or you've had to show your passport, and that's main DHS. So DHS was created back in 2003 after 9/11. What it is, it was 17 agencies brought together. A couple come and go, and it's swollen up. It was 180,000 people at its creation, and it's over 220,000 employees right now. It includes such agencies, and you probably hear about it all the time, especially here, like FEMA, the United States Secret Service, Customs and Border Protection, which includes the Border Patrol, my agency, which falls under Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I have a sub-agency, it's called Homeland Security Investigations, and that's where I fall. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is what grants people citizenship or the right to lawfully be in the United States. And some other various smaller agencies that fall within here, all that are meant to protect the homeland from threats abroad. That being said, my agency, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, we are the main investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. We enforce over 400 different federal laws. And I didn't bring enough, and I'm already going to have to apologize. I didn't realize it was such a big group, but this placemat I kind of gave out is going to be kind of a roadmap of what I'm going to be talking about. about kind of what are those 400 different laws broken down a little simpler. And if you don't have it, don't worry, I'll talk with my hands, I'll draw it out, and you'll kind of get it, or if you want to kind of look over your neighbor's shoulders. But yeah, so Homeland Security investigations falls under Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has HSI and also has ERO. Now when you hear of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you hear usually about ERO stuff, where they swooped in, they grabbed some people who were illegal aliens, and they deported them out of the country. That's their main function. They are an enforcement branch. They target aliens who are not supposed to be here. Usually have criminal records, and they grab them, get a final order of deportation, and they deport them out of the United States. Homeland Security Investigations is a much broader task, and our investigative authorities actually are pretty much the largest in the country. We have 7,000 special agents. We're only second in size to the Bureau, who is about 10,000. So just to give you an idea, there's about 65, anyone who calls himself a special agent, whether it's ATF, EA, Secret Service, there's about 65,000 of us in the country. It's not a big amount of people. When you think about it, there's over 1 million lawyers in the country, we have 300-something million. So when you talk about only 65,000, very small amount. However, to have 7,000 of those 65, that's a big portion of the investigators in the country at the federal level. So what we do is we are looking at trade, travel, finance, and crimes across the border. And that's what we're here to protect on. So we kind of thumbing through, kind of a presentation here. I know we don't have a projector or anything, but sort of follow with me. So again, the big thing we're looking at is transnational criminal organizations. And so we don't just stop those here in the United States. Our aim really is to get these criminals before they cross the border, before they come into the United States. Now, how do we do that? So there are currently 30 SAC offices, that's Special Agent in Charge offices across the United States, and they kind of cover regional offices. And within those, there are 250 sub-offices, like I have, Sarasota, within the United States borders. But beyond our borders, we have a multitude of other offices located internationally, and I'm going to get the exact number for you. We have 68 offices in 51 different countries. So what we try to do is work with our international partners to try to stop these criminal organizations in their home country. We don't care if they get arrested in the United States. I don't care if they get arrested in Sarasota and I'm the one who puts handcuffs on them. What I care about is bad guys go to jail and people are served justice. So we work with our international partners. We use intelligence. We use our partnerships, state, local, federal, international law enforcement, working through Interpol to try to completely dismantle these large organizations. So we have a very large international footprint. So I also mentioned we worked with our state and local law enforcement partners. So one of the reasons I'm here, this is a community group. HSI is big on community. We're big on, I don't know if you've heard the term crime is local. We really believe that here. So, reaching down into our communities and making sure that we educate, we partner, we work with our communities to make it better from the ground up is another strategy that we kind of hold dear. So what we do is we have brought in roughly about 2,500 state and local law enforcement officers. We cross-designated as task force officers. In my office specifically, I've got 5 TFOs who work full-time with HSI. They carry our badge and creds, and they enforce our laws, but they also have their own state and local authorities that we can fall back on. So I can't, as a federal law enforcement officer, I feel go at it alone. I can't. It's not like Elliot Ness, you saw in The Untouchables where, he's running around, it's just him and his 4 guys. I need an army, You ever seen 24? Anyone seen the show 24? Yeah. To me, it's not unbelievable that Jack Bauer can't go do all this by himself in 24 hours. It's unbelievable that one agency can. So we rely very heavily on working with these state and local partners. So some of the things that we cover as an agency, I mentioned we have 400 different federal laws. Well, how is that broken down? And this little map I kind of gave out to you is a day in the life of HSI. The things that we cover are financial crimes. And that's what I worked on as a federal agent for the most of my career when I was actually doing real work and not managing and supervising, which I lose sight of sometimes. I wish I was a real agent again. But financial crimes include everything from money laundering, bulk currency smuggling, trade-based money laundering. Neil mentioned I was part of the Trade Transparency Unit back at our headquarters. So one of the things that I did is I wrote our national strategy for combating trade-based money laundering. And these criminals are so advanced that, you know, it's not like the old days in terms of, you know, I've got a fake business, I'm just running money through. They go to great lengths to clean their money, including using the international trade and financial services. They will open up shipping companies in multiple different countries, and they'll run trade from one country to another, overvalue their invoices for what comes in, and pay off those to what seems to be legitimate companies, thereby washing their money. And it's fascinating stuff, and it's very complex, and it's one of the many crimes we do on the financial side. One that's a set of crimes that is emerging more and more, and I don't see a crime that doesn't touch this, is our cyber crimes. So HSI has become one of the leaders in cybercrime. We run the Cybercrime Center in Virginia, and it's co-located with the Secret Service. You know, cybercrimes is now, it's everything that we see. I mean, it's everything from those fraud schemes that you guys probably get a million times a day, asking to, you owe money to the IRS, and you need to send money via gift cards to someone in India, makes sense, right? To Jamaica lotto scams, we see those, to child exploitation cases. And you see from those, it's kind of been our bread and butter in the cybercrime world and why we're in it. During the old days of the Customs Service, which is what led into HSI, we were tasked with stopping child pornography from entering the United States. And with the advent of the internet, that's become increasingly easy, you know, to do in terms of getting into the United States and getting into commerce. Because that's what it is, it's commerce, and people are asking for it and people are delivering it. So it's our job to stop it from entering the country. And we do that through the internet, through locating international servers, stopping those guys in other countries from producing it, and then arresting those who receive it here in the United States. But what's becoming even more common now is these intrusion cases. Companies with the ransomware and people being held hostage, pay money or I'll lock down your entire business for days on end until you pay me the amount of money you owe us. And companies so often they just pay up. It's part of doing business. Managed security side, so HSI, we control everything border related. So we're really interested in who comes in and comes out of the country. We work very closely with our joint terrorism task forces in stopping those that shouldn't be here. It's a lot of intel-based work. We don't get a lot of arrests out of it, but it's a lot of stuff you don't see in the news. It's stuff where somebody tried to get in, wanted to do something, but we didn't allow it. We were able to stop them in their transit between one country and another, where they got here, and we were able to quietly deport them to another country where they were dealt with by their home country. It was never a terrorism case, but we were able to stop it. This happens day in and day out, and it's stuff that we can't go out and post in the news and say, "Great job, HSI, great job, DHS, great job, FBI." It's something that we quietly do, and it's something we're doing behind the scenes all the time. Human trafficking is another one that is I know at the forefront of the news a lot, is especially females, like sex victims, people being working at farms and agriculture, people being forced against their will to do work, labor, or sexually assaulted. And I think this is one of the more egregious crimes that we enforce, because with a drug smuggler, they've got one product, they smuggle in the United States, it's sold, that product is spent. With human trafficking, that person is abused over and over and over again until they're dead, or they run away, or law enforcement intervenes. So it's a crime that just continues on that person. So when we have a human trafficking victim, we pay very close attention to it and do our best to alleviate that crime as quickly as possible. Now, how does that differ from human smuggling? That's another one. Those two get confused. So human smuggling is, say I'm in Mexico and I bring people in the United States and I'm paid a fee. That's human smuggling. Human trafficking really is on the exploitation part. So you need exploitation for it to be human trafficking. Transnational gangs. Everyone here heard of the gang MS-13? The president, it's a big part of his platform for protecting our borders is to eliminate MS-13. Now, I can tell you just from what I know intel-wise, there's not a lot of MS-13 in this area. I cover Sarasota, DeSoto, Hardee, and Manatee counties, and we really don't have a problem there, which is great. We're staying on top of it. We're working with the sheriffs to make sure that when they see it in their gang, that these gangs pop up, it's usually onesie-twosies, or it filtrates into the penal system that we get rid of those individuals quickly. We don't want it spreading, it's a cancer. So it's something that we're on top of and we were charged with doing. Worksite enforcement, very often, actually every year, we have, again, part of the President's plan is to make sure that companies are hiring the right people. You know, I can't tell you how many businesses I've visited who hire strictly illegal labor force, and there's an argument, and I'm not here to get political, I'm apolitical here, I'm with the government, I'm here to help. But, you know, on the illegal employment part, it's terrible. Because what happens is they're first of all given a subhuman wage. They're not paid a lot. That drives down prices across the board for everybody's wages. Two, they're given substandard conditions to live in. I was in a worksite enforcement case some years back. It was a meatpacking plant, and I actually was fingerprinting an individual who was missing fingers because the OSHA standards were not kept up, and so when they were putting meat through these bandsaws, literally sawing off their fingers. You know, and it's those kind of things that aren't upheld, and it's just the cost of doing business for that company. So, you know, across the board, you know, we're working with something called the image program. We're trying to make sure that businesses do the right thing. If they don't, we come after them. We come after them with fines. We're sometimes the bad guy because we come in and arrest their workforce. It's not because we're picking on those individuals, it's because we have to punish those companies. They're not doing the right thing. Identity and benefit fraud. Now, that's kind of part and parcel sometimes to the worksite enforcement. So with those type of cases, we have individuals who will steal hardworking Americans' social security numbers. They will have fake documents made up so that they can work here legally, or at least appear to work here legally. Now, okay, so what? It's a victimless crime, right? It's not. Because when I steal your identity and I get to use your social security number, you know, I could be opening up accounts, it's going to affect your credit. You know, you're going to go and apply for a house loan and you won't be able to get it. You know, because somebody has ruined your credit because they stole your identity and they're using your social security number. So IP and trade enforcement, that's second last, I got another one after this. You know, the other part of protecting commerce in the United States is making sure the products that come in here are not knockoffs. And you say, okay, that's another one, no big deal. So I go to you know, Chinatown, San Francisco, and I buy some fake purses, so what? Okay, maybe that's not the big deal, you know, but maybe we're trying to protect that U.S. company. But what about when it's pharmaceuticals? I mean, do you want fake pharmaceuticals coming in? You don't. So that's another one we see a lot of is things that actually harm you physically. And so we're trying to stop this trade and IP enforcement violations and crimes. And the last one's the big one. This is the one that I spend the majority of our investigative hours on in this region, and that's narcotics enforcement. So dating back to like the 70s with the creation of the DEA was actually pulled out of the U.S. Customs Service when it was created in 1973. And the reason is because the majority of our enforcement needs to actually happen at the border. Most narcotics are not made here. And so I used to work on the border. I worked in San Ysidro, you know, worked night shifts on the border, and I was on our tunnel task force and stopping massive loads of narcotics, heroin, you know, cocaine from coming in the United States. Here locally, we have a problem with fentanyl and opioids. It's opioids out of narcotics are about half of what I do. And it's gotten to the point where I need to pick and choose the type of narcotics cases I even send my agents out to enforce. I think it's in some counties getting a little better that I cover, and some it's getting worse. Manatee County was one of the worst in the state a few years back. It's leveled off a little bit, but now I got Sarasota County climbing up. And if you want to, I think everyone here has heard about it, but I'll just give you an idea. So you have your opioids, which your main one is obviously heroin. Everybody know what heroin is? So then you got something called fentanyl. Fentanyl has been used, it's a synthetic opioid. It's like a tranquilizer for animals, historically. It is 100 times more potent than heroin. Then you got something that's called carfentanil, which is even worse, which we don't even see a whole lot of anymore, and I'll get into that in a second. But it's like 1,000 times more potent. So if you can get this on your skin, you can ingest it through your skin, and you can overdose and die. It's now made it so that every one of our officers has to carry around a thing called Narcan. Not for the bad guys, not for victims, for ourselves. Because every time that we go into a house, we go into a storage location where we think there's fentanyl, we could be exposed to it. It's very dangerous. But as dangerous as that is for us to even be around handle, people ingest it. They take it as a drug. It's laced down with just about everything. And when they OD, it's really quick. Fortunately, the word has gotten out about how to counter it with Narcan. So the overdose deaths are going down, but the overdoses are still there. So our strategy for narcotics enforcement really has been on that. How do we slow down this wave of fentanyl? So we're putting a lot of our resources to inspecting the mail, to really using intelligence to target these dealers at street level, work up to the large organizations. And it takes a lot, because it's a big deal out here. That we seized last year for narcotics. HSI just last year seized 1.045 million pounds of drugs last year as a whole. And just to give you how bad it's getting in this area. Last year, we hit our numbers from last year in my office by the quarter mark of the fiscal year. So the quarter mark, we had as many arrests as we did all of last year for narcotics. So it's an issue in this region. It's not going to change. I think that the drugs change, the types of drugs change. The opioids came from these pill pushers who were prescribing pills. Those got shut down, and they moved to heroin. Heroin moved to fentanyl because fentanyl's cheap. So one of the things that happened, and I was kind of talking about how we see less of the really strong stuff, is the cartels got wise that they were killing all of their customers. So they don't ship in straight fentanyl anymore. It doesn't come anywhere. It comes already laced. They mix it, they cut it. Because they know that they were killing all their customers and it was bringing down the heat on them. Like, we were coming down really hard. And we are still coming down hard. One more type of case category is one of my favorites. So I told you I spend all this time doing drug stuff. So whenever I don't do drug stuff, I get really excited because it's sad. It makes me depressed that there's so much of this stuff out there. But we do some cool stuff too. Like we also enforce cultural property, arts, and antiquities in the United States. So what does that mean? So I think the easiest way to understand is think back like World War II, the Nazis. So they pilfered all of Europe. They went to museums, to rich people's houses. Everywhere they went, they stole art, and they hoarded it. The rich kind of got away with it, a lot of it, and us, the United States, we weren't also good in that either, because when we got there and we found caches of art a lot of times, we took it home. We said, oh, this is ours now. It's the spoils of war. Same thing with the Russians. The Russians pilfered all the art as well. Soldiers pilfered art. There's a museum. It's just crazy too. I was in outside of Columbus. It was full of old stolen art. Basically, the entire museum was. So that's where they end up a lot. So we'll do a lot of investigations where we'll come up. Art was stolen during a time of war, and it actually ends up in someone's personal collection. They donated it to get the tax benefit to a museum, and now I got to go to a museum and say, hey, that priceless piece of art there, I got to have it back. Give it to me. So actually, Wednesday, myself and another agent, we're actually going to Harvard in a couple days. Harvard currently has a piece that is actually, I can't go into it because it's going to be kind of a big splash one, but ended up in possession of somebody who lives in Northport. He gave it to Harvard to be studied, and we got to go take it back, and it's kind of a neat piece. But I wish I could talk about it. If it was maybe Thursday, I could, but stuff like that's kind of neat stuff we do. With that, that's kind of an overview of what HSI does, our investigative authorities. It's the main investigative arm of DHS. Other investigative arms is the Secret Service. I think everyone's kind of familiar with that. They protect the president. They do currency, fake currency, and threats against the president. Other investigators are Coast Guard Criminal Investigative Service. They do mostly crimes against the Coast Guard. And there's DHS OIG, which is any fraud, waste, or abuse against the department. But with that, I go with any questions anybody has, or Neil, or?
Okay, we'll have our Q&A, and we'll come to you. Please raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll come to you with a microphone. Any questions? Okay. Let's see if this is working.
How does sanctuary cities affect your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a good person to answer. I'll tell you why. I used to work in San Francisco, my first posted duty. I was a young aviation 2002. I'm all gung-ho, I want to go arrest some people, and I get to, I'm a customs agent. We merge, with the Immigration Naturalization Service, which automatically put us like on the naughty blacklist for any law enforcement agency that I work with. And I didn't work immigration. I'm a financial guy, and one of the ones I didn't put in my bio. I also have an MBA and an accounting degree, and so I was there. I've always been the financial guy. That's what I do, and I would do narcotics cases. I want espionage cases, that kind of stuff. I couldn't even get the San Francisco PD to hold a major narcotics violator overnight so that I can put him into federal custody the next day, just to hold him in. And I had nothing to do with immigration. The guy was a U.S. citizen. He was a narcotics smuggler. But because of my badge, the San Francisco PD wouldn't work with me. When I was in Columbus, we were doing a retail theft ring, and I have no problem calling out these departments because I think sanctuary cities, I get where they're coming from in terms of constituents, but from working with law enforcement partnering, remember that whole partnering piece I gave, how essential it is? So when you pull out that major piece of local law enforcement out from underneath us, that makes us powerless to enforce all those really dangerous crimes like narcotics crimes or fraud or money laundering. The human smuggling part, or even like the illegal alien part, is such a small part of what HSI does, and you kind of cut us off the knees. So another example is in Columbus, and we're doing a retail theft case, and then you're like, why are you doing a retail theft case? That sounds like shoplifting. That's what my boss said too. I said, yes, we're doing a retail theft case, because why do people do these retail theft rings? They do it to get money to buy drugs. And if you get the people who are buying drugs, you get the people who are selling the drugs, and you work up. And so it's like a little funsy time, like, hey, let's go arrest some people and work it up into big cases. So we do. So here we are in Columbus. It's about 2 years ago, and the Columbus is, yes, smack dab in Ohio, pretty much a red state. Columbus is blue, very blue. And the chief of police came down and said, no, we're not going to go and help HSI round up a bunch of people. It's done. We're not helping on this. Retail theft, narcotics, non-immigration. So it makes no sense to me. I think it's unfortunate because who gets caught up in this? You do. The communities do. Because law enforcement is not able to do their job and to stop crimes and protect you. It's sad. Sir? That's not a political statement, that's just true.
Okay, we have another question over here.
Just to expand on the previous question, these people are violating federal law. Now, maybe I got it all backwards, but I was always under the impression that federal law trumps local laws. So how can these people run these sanctuary situations and get away with it? Is the government just not acting?
So that's a great question. So you're talking about supremacy clause, Constitution, yes. The federal government, our laws, the Constitution, trumps any federal or state and local laws for legal activities. And we still do our job. A good example, I'm not saying I'm not going to get on if it should be legal or not, but for my entire career, it's been very hard to enforce marijuana. And I'm not going to get into if it should be or shouldn't be legal. But if it's illegal, I'm going to enforce it. If I catch someone breaking the law, I'm going to arrest them. That being said, when I was in California, arresting people for weed, it was hard. And now you get into crime states where it's legal, guess what? It's still illegal federally. So if you import it to the United States and you live in Colorado, guess what? You're still going to go to jail for narcotics smuggling. I don't care if it's legal there. But again, with the sanctuary cities, with the conflicting laws, it's all about political will. Political will, you know, it's like, is someone going to go take that fight to a higher level? And I think we've seen that the administration absolutely will go take it there, but will your other politicians do that? And, you know, we can only go, so I'm funded by Congress, that's who pays my, you know, writes my check, it's Congress. So it's you know, what Congress says, and we still enforce it. But yes, some states and cities, until somebody holds a financial hammer to them, they're going to continue doing what they're doing. You know, and so hopefully, you know, I don't foresee all the laws matching up ever. It's never going to happen. But there's certain things that need to go away. The sanctuary cities needs to go away. You know, it doesn't do any good.
I'm just curious, before Homeland Security, it seems like a lot of the work you're doing was done by the FBI, and I wonder if you still work with them, but you work with the Department of Justice, and Secret Service was under the Treasury. Now, you work with these people as well, and how different what you do is what they did?
Right, good question. So my legacy agency before I was HSI was the United States Customs Service. U.S. Customs Service did all the things we were kind of talking about, minus anything immigration, when it had a nexus to the U.S. border. And what we do still has to have really a nexus to the U.S. border. I don't do anything that's purely domestic. I like to stay, my lane is guarding the borders. Now, okay, so Sarasota, what ports do you have? You know, you got some water next to you. How does that work? Well, it's not really hard to find nexus when you're talking about importation.
Like the drugs and stuff, wasn't that mostly an FBI thing?
No, it's not. It's always been shared. The Bureau, again, let's talk again about, they got 10,000 agents. DEA's got 3,000 agents. HSI's got 7,000 agents. That's less than the police force than a mid-sized city to cover the entire United States. It's crazy to think about when you put it in that perspective. There's 17,000 law enforcement agencies in the country. And we've got, you know, the main players, the main narcotics enforcement people are the FBI, the DEA, and HSI. And that's tiny. It's drop in the bucket. So that's why we're talking about those federal, state, and local partnerships. It's leveraging people's capabilities. So, great question. Do I work with the FBI? All the time. So the RAC for the FBI and I are good friends. We have to actually give each other cases a lot. They're small like us in that sense, in that region. Great partner. DEA does not have an office in my region. So DEA has an office in Tampa. So again, we all kind of cover a map, you know, and try to cover each other. One agency can't do all. It's like that Jack Bauer thing I told you about. Like, I don't believe that Jack Bauer couldn't do it in 24 hours. I believe that his one agency couldn't do it by himself.
Is there Homeland Security in Tampa as well?
There is. So that's where our SAC office is. So my boss's boss is the special agent in charge, Jim Spiro. He's out of Tampa. And he sits there, to give you an idea, like, you know, we have these sub-offices are called RACs. We report to the assistant special agent in charge, is one of them that's in Tampa, and then obviously to the special agent in charge. So, and there's a military equivalency for the military guys. So the SES is the equivalent of general across the board. That's how the SES system works. He's at Alabama GS-14, which is like a lieutenant colonel. So if you military guys want to think of it that way, that's kind of how it works. So, good question, though.
Could you just expand a little bit more about the drug problem in the area? Like, is it affect certain age groups? Is it all over? And also, does it affect cocaine?
Okay, so that's someone here. So local drug problem, and I'll kind of give it for the region because we just did a study kind of on the Tampa AOR. I say Tampa, Hillsborough County, Manatee, down through Sarasota, and then DeSoto and Hardin, kind of covered that area for a task force we'll put together. I wish I could say that the ages were like, oh yeah, we need to target this age. It's everyone. We just did a enforcement action about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I arrested a 61-year-old woman. So just to give you an idea, there's not, we can say it's just teenagers. We can just talk to our teenagers, and you know, it's like back in the 80s, you know, talk to our kids about drugs. It's everybody. It's everywhere. So cocaine is still a big issue. What we're seeing now with cocaine is it's being laced with fentanyl. So just about every cocaine seizure we're getting has a little bit of fentanyl in it to kick it up a notch. So they can cut it, they cut it more with other, other additives like powdered milk and whatever they cut it with, and they add a little fentanyl to give it a little more kick, so they don't notice they got stepped on the cut. It increases the profits of the drug smugglers.
Do people know that when they're buying cocaine that they're getting it, some fentanyl?
So part of our strategy is not just enforcement. So when we work with, especially the state of Florida, it's about education. What's been great is being to get out the word about Narcan. You probably heard on the radio things about Narcan, being able to get it. Like that's part of our enforcement strategy is also like we don't want people to die. So we're trying to inform people, and when we have overdoses, we try to educate them like, hey, yes, you're taking this, but this is what's potentially in here. And this is what happened to you. We had someone with some meth recently, and had some bad meth. And you're trying to explain something like, look, like what you took before is not what you're getting now. You need to clean your act, or you're going to die. But that's a great question.
Hi. You've been working for many years, and under President Obama and now President Trump. Do you feel any difference? Does it make a presidency make your job easier or more difficult, or doesn't affect at all?
So I'll give you a little bit of honesty. Again, it's not political. Yes, the president. Who's president? I'm under the executive branch. Makes a difference for me. Especially since I have the I part of immigration attached to me. So under certain administrations, again, with Secretary of Cities, it's harder to work with certain other law enforcement partners. The current administration loves my agency. We're like their poster child. Probably because we haven't investigated them. But, the poor Bureau right now, they're not doing so well. But he talks about ICE and HSI all the time, that we're kind of his poster child. Which is great because we're getting a lot of funding, we're getting the tools we need. His appointees are making sure we get what we need to do our job. And past administrations have had there's pluses and minuses to the Obama administration, just like there's pluses and minuses to the Trump administration too. I'm not saying that Trump, for us, is perfect. It's just you weigh those. We get to do certain things or certain other things that we didn't get to do before, and then the administration changes and it just changes. But what we keep doing, since we're apolitical, we just keep marching forward. We got 400 different federal laws waiting for us. We take them, we rack and stack them. What is the biggest concern of the community? What do we need to do to protect people of the United States? And we execute. So it doesn't matter to us who's in power. We're going to go do our job. Sometimes we have a little bit more help, but it doesn't matter. We're going to do it anyway.
The moment.
What would happen in your world, or in your opinion, what would happen if ICE was done away with?
All right. So abolish ICE. I love this one. So every once in a while, I wish it would actually happen, then I could take an early retirement, and I would go live in my nice house in Sarasota, and I'd be good. No, that'd actually be terrible, because the people who say abolish ICE don't understand what ICE is. They don't sit here and listen to someone like me explain to them the importance of the things we do or how we protect the community. All they understand is one aspect, and that's that we deport people, ignoring the fact that most of the people we deport are criminals. So they ignore that part. Well, hey, whatever. Let's ignore the fact also that we are, a large portion of those who enforce the drug laws here in the United States, the dangerous drug laws. We're not talking about marijuana, so we're talking about dangerous drugs, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine. I laugh at it because that's never going to happen. ICE is not going to get abolished. Even relatively liberal Democrats agree that what we do is important. And I've worked on committee with like Dianne Feinstein, for instance, who we probably fall into that category, is actually a big supporter of the things that HSI does, especially in Tunnel Task Force when I was working in San Diego. Tunnel law, I wrote it. It's pretty cool. But I worked with Dianne Feinstein to do that. So it's a fringe. It's not the Democratic Party. It's not, when you call them liberals, it's a fringe part of the party. And they get too much voice sometimes because it clouds what many Americans are somewhere in that middle, and reasonable people. And I'm not again going judge, Dianne Feinstein, everything, but she's not against ICE. She's not against HSI. I've worked with her people. So again, I hope that narrative goes away because it's confusing to the public, and it's not going to conducive to anything. You're not doing good. ICE is not going anywhere. So, good question.
Okay, now, ICE gets a bunch of criminals, or get a bunch of aliens that are slated for deportation. What do you have to go through to actually get rid of them? Do they get lawyers and all kinds of hearings and delays and postponements, all kinds of slithering around, so that in the end they stay? Maybe just a few get out, the rest of them stay.
So next question. Well, look, what was the, again, Constitution? Everybody is, we don't grant our constitutional rights to Americans only. If you come into the United States, whether you're legal or not, you are afforded the rights of the Constitution. And that includes that to a trial. Now how immigration differs and how we enforce immigration from, say, drug charges is it's an administrative charge. So we have administrative judges who are called immigration judges. They work under the Department of Justice. And you're still given your due process. You still get to go in front of a judge, plead your case, saying, I am or I wasn't here, or you can waive it. A lot of people do voluntary return and go back to Mexico, go back to wherever they're from. Some fight it. You are also granted a lot of opportunities to claim asylum. And it's an important process in the United States. Is it abused? Yes. Is it very hard to work through? Yes, because it takes a long time to go through an asylum process. And while they're here, guess what? They're granted status. They're automatically, you're okay to be here because you have an asylum claimant. And one of the things we do to try to mitigate that is we'll look at all the asylum claims. And sometimes they all look the same, and they're even word for word the same. And then we go, who's your lawyer? And we'll find out that there's a lawyer who's being paid by these guys to put in bogus claims to CIS or to the government. And then what we'll do is we'll go after that lawyer and we'll arrest that lawyer for fraud and disbar and lose his job. So we don't get a lot of satisfaction on the recipient side, but sometimes it's nice. If everyone's a lawyer, I'm sorry, I don't mean to brag on you, but we'll go after the lawyers though, because a lot of the immigration lawyers I've found in my career prey on those who are think they're helping them. The people looking for immigration benefits. Some of them very legitimate, and they get ripped off a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of immigration lawyers. Sorry if you are one. Yeah.
What about this group in Texas that are enforcing border rule law outside of the law on their own?
Okay. That's not smart. I know. That's really dumb. So I went to an academy for 6 months. I learned how to shoot a gun. I learned how to keep the laws. I learned about the Constitution, how to protect rights, which that guy who just got arrested didn't do. I have backup. I have people who I call in for backup. I think it's dumb. You're playing with fire. You're going to get arrested for violating someone's constitutional rights, their Fourth Amendment rights. 2, you're going to get killed. A lot of these guys who go across the border with narcotics or even aliens, they're armed. So you want to go as a single person and stand in front of a group of aliens with a coyote who's probably armed, because he's going to shoot one of those guys to prove a point. He's going to shoot you. Why don't you just be a good citizen and call it into the Border Patrol and call it a day and don't try to be a hero? But it's stupidity. And I get it. I get its frustration. It's based off frustration, thinking that the government's not doing enough. It's resources. Which surprised me. I haven't heard a wall question yet. But a wall question. I'm surprised I haven't heard a wall question. I'll just do it because someone's going to ask it. I'll answer. So what I get asked a lot is, what do I think about a wall? Do I think a wall will work? So I don't think a wall is the only thing we need. We have a wall across 109 miles of border right now. We have since I started, basically. And it's in major metropolitan areas for a reason. It's a speed bump, but it gives us a chance to mount a fight. Get into a battle. I'm sorry, it's a military thing. To mount a fight and get a defensive position. And do they work? In certain places they work really well. In certain places they may add a little bit more protection. It's a tool, though. It's not the end all, but it's not a bad thing, though. wall is not a bad thing. It's not, you can't say a wall is evil, it's an inanimate object. But, you know, we put walls around a lot of things. You know, I live in, this is a good example, this community has a really nice wall. I couldn't even get in it. But why do you have that? Because it works. A federal agent could not get through your wall. So, yes, no, walls are good, but I did get through, slow me down, but enough so that I can be verified. Who am I? And that's what we're trying to do, is try to verify who people are. Make sure the right people, make sure they go through the legal ports of entry. We've got ports of entry across the United States and Southwest border for a reason. That's where you're supposed to go through the port. So, I don't know, I don't think it's the end all, but I don't think it's bad either. You know, what I would say is, we need to add to that. We need more agents. We need more intelligence assets, more intelligence analysts to analyze the data we're seeing so we can properly put resources in the right place. You know, we need more money for better equipment in some places, you know, more vehicles. I mean, there's a lot of things we need, you know, and the wall is just one of those things. You know, it's not a place I'd probably, you know, stake my flag and say that's the only thing we need, because it's not. We need a lot, but again, I'm not going to say it's some evil thing either. It is what it is. It's a wall.
I have a question about E-Verify and
Yeah.
phony social security numbers. Do any companies use that system, or is that required, or that's on a voluntary basis in Florida or different states?
So the E-Verify system, that's actually a really good intelligent question. I like it. E-Verify system is a system the U.S. government has in place where we partner with companies who voluntarily use this system to make sure that all their employees are legally allowed to work there. Comes with a couple caveats, like, okay, you're part of the system, but if you cheated, you're really in trouble. But it's a great system, and yes, we have an E-Verify representative in Tampa, and all she does is travel around to big, large companies and gets people on board on the program. And I just talked to her today, actually, and she's like, I asked her, I like her a lot. We used to work in St. David together. I'm like, why don't you come down to Sarasota and work? And she's like, from my office. And she's like, I'm way too busy. I love my job here, and I'm out all the time. So yes, the answer is we have a ton of companies locally. It's not required. It's a voluntary thing. But more and more, you know, when they're on board and they're using the system, their liability goes down. It's better for these companies because if they're checking everybody right, we're not going to come after them with a huge fine, you know, which we will. And we don't care who the company is. We don't care who they're connected to politically. If you hire illegal aliens and you don't do the right things to know who your employees are, we're going to come after you with a huge fine. And if it's really egregious, criminal charges. So there's a lot of incentive to be part of this program.
Any other questions?
Neil?
I was watching the news before I came, and I believe I saw them say that 164,000 have been arrested so far this year. 1,120 per day are being arrested at the borders in Texas, California, so on. Are we going to reach a tipping point, in your opinion?
Tipping point how?
Can't go on like this.
We can't handle it. We reach it all the time. So, you heard about our brethren on the other side of ICE. They're called ERO, Enforcement Removal Operations. They hit that tipping point. And I don't want to get too much into it. Again, it's a very political thing, but it's this separation from families sort of issue and having people in cages, whatever. We have a certain finite amount of bed space. It costs a lot of money. We're basically like a huge hotel runner, as the DHS, because we have to feed, clothe, and house families and people after we detain them, before we send them back. So we are constantly fighting to have enough bed space to facilitate that. And since I came on, we've never had like, oh, we got a lot of extra bed space going on right now. It's always been at that point where we're at the breaking point. So we go back to Congress, we ask for more money to expand our facilities or do whatever. And one of the problems that DHS, I'm going to admit, has run into is subcontracting some of that, and standards are not perfect. And in the last year or so, we've tried to alleviate and fix some of those issues, as the department has, because we've got a lot of scrutiny for it. But I don't know. The trend is always ever climbing. In terms of what we have to handle. And Congress has been nice enough to give us the resources we need to basically maintain. But I mean, I can't really see in the future, but I see it just constantly being a struggle. That's a good question.
What to close the borders temporarily?
Right, border closing, another good one. That's a terrible idea. That's an absolute terrible idea. So, and I'll tell you why. So, international commerce, I'm a financial guy. You know, that would disrupt financial commerce in the United States. You stop letting things come in, you're not going to get your iPhones, you're not going to get all the stuff you think you don't rely on from foreign entities, but you do. Foreign cars, which are made in Mexico, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's crazy to think about, you know, what you get from down south. I mean, your produce, you know, general housewares, goods, all the stuff you buy at Walmart. I mean, Walmart items a lot of times touch multiple shores before they get to the United States, including Mexico. So closing the borders would disrupt our commerce. It would give us, basically give you less buying power once you buy. Things would cost more, prices would go up. I don't think it's a good idea. And it's just going to create a backlog then when things do have to come to the United States.
Can't there be a difference between the people coming and wanting asylum and wanting to be here and the goods and the commerce? Why do they have to go together?
Border closure is border closure. That means nothing comes in. So commerce are people. But could you theoretically split it up? You could say we're going to close the land borders and allow the commercial trucks to come through, but then people still have to drive through with it. Most of the stuff that comes in in vehicles and trucks. It's like the Otay Mesa Port of Entry in California. Now, San Ysidro is the largest land port in the world, busiest. Next to it is one of the busiest ports of entry from Mexico, where trucks all come in. That's the Otay Mesa Port of Entry. People still have to drive those trucks in. That's why you really can't cut either one of those off. Now, what we do have the ability to leverage is our ability to how many people we allow in under special circumstances from certain countries, and that's where the administration is going to play with numbers. You know, saying, I mean, I don't want to get into a political mess here, but you know, certain countries yes, certain countries no, and it's constantly a fight because you know there's somebody on the other side who says that's not American. You know, we can't do that.
You can't hear me back here.
I'm sorry, sir. I'll talk closer. I can hear me because I'm probably right next to the speaker. But apologize. But no, the question was, you know, can we differentiate between the people and the goods coming to the United States? And my answer is no, we can't. They're one-on-one. So closing the border is not going to work. You know, shutting down commerce in the United States. I mean, we're too intertwined as a global economy. You'd say, well, that stinks. We want to be on our own. Well, yeah, kind of, but kind of no. Because we want buying power as consumers in the United States. We want to be able to buy things cheaply. You know, when we don't have that buying power, we give it to the companies in the United States. And if they only have it, it's a monopoly. That's not really American. You know, we want to have the ability to buy things at a cheaper price and say, no, we're going to buy this product. Or so this product might be better. But that's your choice as a consumer. That's like the American way. So I don't know. Economics is weird these days, especially when you look at like cars or things where they're made. You're like, well, that's a Japanese company. But wait, everything that's made of is made in the United States with U.S. workers. Well, that's a U.S. company. Wait a second. That entire product is made in Mexico. So isn't that owned by that? No, that's actually owned by this person in this country, not by an American anymore. So it's too far gone to say like that's an American company in my opinion. Say like that's only American. It's hard to say now. It's hard for the U.S. government because we have a Buy America Act, so we're supposed to only buy American products for our everyday use, and we have to go back and go, wait, we can't buy that car because that car's made in Mexico. That's not an American product. So it's kind of weird. But any other questions?
Okay, I'll go over with the microphone.
What is the average time to get a family back over to the border where they came from? How long does it take the government to get them out?
So that's a good question. I can tell you it's a lot better now than it was about 6 months ago. I can't give you an exact answer. If you want, I can try and talk something back to Neil. I know that's something we've worked on. We've had to assure Congress that it's going in an efficient manner and we don't have any separated families and everyone's moving along in the process. But I don't have an exact number for you right now, and that's on the ERO side, so I don't have a lot of vision on it. I don't see it a lot. But good question.
Any other comments, questions, comments? No? Okay, I just want to say, I think our federal and all our law enforcement officers work so hard to protect us. There's so much crime out there. There's so much going on. We live in a beautiful community like Valencia Lakes. You talk about a wall, it's almost like we're in a different world, and it's good, refreshing to some degree, and informative to have somebody like Mr. Emery come in and talk about what's going on out there in America. And I don't think our law enforcement personnel get enough recognition for what they're doing and really get the respect. And they're protecting us, they're keeping us alive. So I want to thank you for everything you're doing, you and your fellow officers. And of course, thank you for coming today and really very enlightening presentation. And I just saw something where Homeland Security's budget is $40 billion, with a B, billion dollars a year. So this is a very important agency, and they're really charged with protecting the homeland, whereas the Defense Department is charged with protecting us overseas, I think, and you guys are protecting us here in the homeland. So you got a very difficult job to do, and we thank you for doing it.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you very much for letting me come out here today. I really appreciate it.
That's it.